Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're going to be discussing midweek racing in Niel, the third round of the Superprestige, and with me here to discuss it, as always, is Issam. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Racing in Niel, always on the 11th of November. The armistice in the First World War is commemorated then in Belgium. Big bank holiday and a good reason for people to come to cyclocross to drink beer if they are not celebrating the start of the carnival season. In Niel, the Superprestige had Michael van Toerenhout starting as leader. He was very eager. He had a big bonk moment in the European Championships in Middelkerke this weekend, and he was quite eager early on to set the pace, create a first separation with some other riders. We quickly went to a situation with three leaders, although the others were not too far behind. We had Michael van Toerenhout from Pauwelshausen, Niels van der Putten from, of course, Alpecin, and we had Laurens Zweek from Crelan-Corendon. In a way, we had the three disappointments from the European Championships duking it out. Where were the other riders? Well, that's a really good question because, for instance, the European champion Toon Aerts, he was way back there. Maybe had a few too many beers, too big party. I don't really know what was up, but he was 25th and needed to fight his way to the front. He would never see the front of the race again. Thibaut Nys, not there. Pim Ronhaar in the same situation as Toon Aerts, way down there fighting his way to the front. There were a couple of riders trying to bridge across. Felipe Oorts, Jente Michels, those two came across, but it were eventually too many matches burned for them to really compete for the overall win. The three riders that were at the front after some 20 minutes of racing were also the ones duking it out in the final laps. The fight for the win was very weird. Everyone had their strong moments and everyone had their weak moments. Zweek at some point seemed to be dropped, but he came back. Van Toerenhout at some point seemed to be struggling, came back. We had Niels van der Putten at some point dangling at the back, came back to the front, attacked in the penultimate lap, but got caught again. In the final lap, Michael van Toerenhout opened the gap through the sand pit. That was only short-lived because by the pits he had already been caught again. Van Toerenhout was kind of in a similar situation as in Middelkerke, but just a lot later in the race. He completely emptied the tank, he had nothing left. He needed to see Van der Putten and Zweek fight it out for the win. Van der Putten took the lead over the Muur of Niel. It seemed to be in a good position to win the race, but that was without Laurens Zweek. The Belgian, who had been very disappointed with his season so far, had something left in the tank in the final lap. He was in the wheel of Van der Putten and they sprinted for the win. It was a very close sprint finish for the win, but by the tightest of margins, it was Zweek who took the win ahead of Van der Putten and Van Toerenhout Issam. This was a surprise, I would say. I said it in my summary just now. We had the disappointments of the European Championships, and in a way, this race is also a non-race because the European Championships were just 2 days ago. Super hard race, many top guys not here, barely recovered. Some riders who had a good performance probably went out to get some food. There were a few people, I think you told me it was Ronhaar who said he was going to go to the McDonald's after that race, and you had Aerts, of course, celebrating his win big time. The dynamics, therefore, were very weird, and that reflected in the race. There were not really many attacks, but I don't like this course. That's not a secret. But because there's so many features, and now it was so fast, and that wet zone, I believe it was not wet this year for the first time ever. It didn't really feature. They might have taken a large portion out as well. The laps seemed to be even more compact. And as a result, it's just impossible to stay in the wheels because barriers, or kind of this barrier more at the end of the off-camber, then the moguls, the sand section, hills, corners. It's just impossible to stay in the wheels. It gets stringed out, and at some point it's just due to break somewhere, and you'd better be at the front. Last year when Zweek won, he did it from a solo from pretty much the first lap of the race, and this year the riders who were at the front took the advantage of that in the end. The riders who were at the back just didn't have it to come back, so surprising win by Zweek. He turns it around. A much needed win for him, I would say, because the storylines were already building. Is Zweek still going to do anything? Is he old? Is it time for him to retire? But that seems to have been hauled off for now, at least with this win.
Yeah, I think this is just a very difficult course, to judge something on. And it's also for the riders, just, you have to get motivated. And it's very easy to be behind, and when you are behind, it's just very hard as well to get back into the race, I guess. And it's, that is definitely, when you look at it, it's just it's a tough course, and it's definitely a course that if I talk about cyclocross and the things that I love to see, this is definitely not a course that I prefer to have on my screen. And I think there could be riders that have similar opinions, but that's for them. But yeah, it's a difficult course. But yeah, I think it was also the case of how motivated are you, because there were definitely certain riders already that before they started, they were somewhat out of a very good, classifying position in the Superprestige, because the classification is just so tough with 1 point difference a position. And I think there were just several factors. The European Championships are just 2 days behind us, and the likes of Toon Aerts, they were not really in a promising position in the Superprestige, so they come here and it's all, he was probably in a very good mood and probably not taking, I wouldn't say too seriously, because you will always have that, but at the back of your head there might be something that you think like, well, it's just a race, I just have to get through it and see where I end up. And when it doesn't go your way in the first lap, you try to chase, but then at a certain point you just realize, okay, there's a double weekend coming. If I do both races this weekend, and if that is the case, I might just save up a little bit and make sure that I'm ready for those 2 races. So that makes it different. But then you get a race in which you had a Van Toerenhout that seems to want to set the record straight in a way. Van der Putte was very motivated, and Sveik, if you look at his season, what we thought could be a promising season for Sveik absolutely wasn't. So those 3, in a way, they had really something to fight for, and they had the legs to do it, considering that the course, doesn't really give you all that much room if you have good legs. So it plays a role, but it also doesn't in a way, and it's hard to get away. It's at the end it was all tactical, I guess, and that sprint, well, that was a sprint and a half from Sveik, and I think it was for Van der Putte just so unfortunate. I think he was strong. He might have been a bit stronger than Sveik, but it was just the unfortunate position of being in the front, and the way Sveik was able to keep on fighting, keep on believing in that win. I think that was also great to see. And I don't rate this course that high, but I definitely feel that Sveik will look at this victory as bouncing back from what has been quite a disappointing season.
For Sveik, this has been a good course historically. You touch upon a very valid point, Issam, because this is kind of the first time that Niel is this close to the European Championships, and for the Belgian Championships you have Otegem the day after, and this is always kind of a revenge race. Remember the incident between Sveik and Van Toerenhout in the pits, and the next day Sveik sets out on anger to get his sportive revenge on Van Toerenhout. So you see that quite a lot at those races. Sometimes we've seen it in Maldegem, although not as much recently, with many riders skipping that race, but that also used to be a race like that. And definitely Lille was always a race in which people could kind of prove themselves for a disappointing championship. And now Niel is in that position for the European Championship. So I agree on your points about the overall motivation. I would like to touch upon Van Toerenhout, because he was the rider of the last 2 races for me because of the way he animated the races. This guy was always at the front. At the European Championships, he didn't waste any opportunity to accelerate. Here today it was kind of similar. Yes, he took a few moments to recuperate. He also did that in Middelkerke. But overall, if you look at the race, it was, to me, like I was watching a replay in terms of what Van Toerenhout was doing. He was going out very early, setting out explosively, eager, wanting to force a decision early on. And I've criticized people for making moves too early. And I'm wondering at what point I should start telling Van Toerenhout, hey man, you probably ought to do it a bit more calmly if you want to win these races. On today's course, I can still excuse it because there are so many technical features. You go to the front, it's hard to overtake, it's easy to force error upon the others. That's also why you saw these gaps kind of be created between the front runners and why you saw the momentum flick between them. That was simply because if you were in second or third, you put a small foot down, you don't make it up the climb, you need to dismount earlier in the sand, and you all of a sudden have a 4-second gap, and it costs quite some energy to close that gap. So I can, to an extent, see why Van Torenhout does this today, but I am wary of the fact that he is racing very aggressively, and it seems to cost him at the end of the race. Today, his final lap was quite flat. At the European Championships, I seriously wonder if his fueling plan was off. That type of bonk is something I haven't seen a lot in cyclocross, definitely not from an experienced rider like Van Torenhout. But today, is it just me, Assam, or would a good Van Torenhout normally, if he gets that 3-second gap, 4-second gap in the final lap after the sand, in which he was quite strong all race, if he would have that gap, would normally you would expect Van Torenhout to kind of go to the end from there? That's the Van Torenhout we know from races like Dublin. You give him half a opportunity and he takes it.
You read my mind when I was watching that last lap, to be honest, because, and it has been from the beginning of the season, the way Van Torenhout is trying to kind of make his race, and that can work if the difference between you and your competitors is just a bit bigger, but it hasn't been really the case. He's very good, but it costs him at the end, and it's I mean, that bonk in Middelkerke, that could be numerous reasons. Definitely, in terms of what did you eat and all that, that could definitely play a role, and that you didn't had the right preparation for that. I think that motivation probably also played a role, because he probably felt that he had the chance of winning, and when you are just out of that, you don't really go for it. And what's the difference between 5th and 10th for someone like Van Torenhout? But I think maybe the factor that we should count in this, which is probably the most important factor, is the fact that he is not racing with Iserbyt. And I think that could actually play a role in the way he's racing now. I wouldn't say that he's clueless, but I guess he's kind of trying to find a new way that suits him, and he probably thinks that being in control of the race, trying to open the race very hard is the way to go, and is the way that would help him. But I feel that he has been losing races in a way, and especially today, you look at the efforts that he was doing, and also on the last lap, it was just too early, and the others were loving it. They were like, go on, we're going to have you at the end of the lap. A short lap, but they will have him, and they had him, and he had no answer. And I think Van Torenhout last year, even if Iserbyt wasn't there, he would race totally different. I feel that he would have been the one that makes the moves at the end of the lap, not being the one that is going all out at the beginning of the last lap. I didn't understand that. It's maybe, could be confidence, could be routine, I have no idea, but it's noticeable, and it's just not something that it works in his favor.
Can I jump in there? Because routine, I think, is the way to describe it, Essam. Normally, what are the Paul Sousa tactics? Van Torenhout is kind of the dog. He goes out and he's been used as a kind of bait. He's the one setting the pace, forcing the early initiative. Iserbyt is the one at the back blocking. Iserbyt is always being a little bit annoying. Not all of the time like dropping the gaps, but he won't chase or he'll accidentally miss up a corner. And Van Torenhout has a gap and the rest needs to work. In most of the races, Iserbyt is the leader of the team, and then in the final lap, or the final 2 laps, it's the turn of Iserbyt. Iserbyt makes his move about 40 minutes into the race and then in the final lap. Very successful for them. Without Iserbyt, it kind of feels like Van Torenhout is adapting to the same role as if Iserbyt is there, trying to break open the race. He is typically the one that creates the first shift in the race. That's when Iserbyt is there, and this year it's still the case, but now the difference is that when he's tired at the end and can kind of fall back to 3rd or 4th, he can't really still do that while having his teammate win the race, because Iserbyt is of course not there, and they are worried that we might never see Iserbyt again.
He's the main guy now, and he has to get used to that, and I think in a way he somewhat is, because he definitely is thinking about the way he should be racing, but it's weird because I can remember that he had to race at times where Iserbyt didn't play a role in the race, and he just was different. He just, I guess it's maybe a thing of, feeling this responsibility of, I wouldn't say carrying the team, but I guess in a way it is carrying the team. He needs to bring in those results, and maybe that is just something that I wouldn't say messes with his mind, but it's just something that he has constantly in the back of his head thinking about it, and when he is making his moves, he's like, oh, I need to take initiative, I need to be at the front, I need to put them under pressure. He's very eager, and he has been, but it was just a bit different because he could always, he makes a move and then it was easier beat, and then he could just sit behind a little bit and had a reason. But now he needs to create a reason, I guess, because if he's not doing that, he will lose races. I'm not saying that he would have won today, but he would have had a better chance than he had now. And that is the thing. That is also, I guess, the frustrating thing when you watch it. I'm not a Van Toerenhout fan, but just if you look at it, it's just, I don't know, something is off. And the thing that is off is the way he's racing, because I think today he had good legs to be able to fight for victory. And, well, yeah, it didn't play that way. It was Sveik that was, could you say, maybe the smartest as well? I don't know. He was definitely strong enough to be able to get that victory in the end.
Sveik won on Grinta. The way he was hanging in there was really impressive, and perhaps Van Toerenhout has built a bit of trauma from that race in Meulenbeke, where every time you look behind him, they're not here in my room right now, but for him there were like 5 Crelan Corendon riders, and today, honestly, if he looks behind, there's also always a Crelan Corendon rider chasing. Sure, it was Jente Michels, which gave Niels van der Putte a good reason not to chase, but Emil Verstringen was coming up, Toon van der Bos was up there. So once again, we come to the conclusion that the tables have turned on Paul Sauze. They don't have the raw numbers up front anymore. That's Crelan Corendon now in most of the cases. The Roodhoofd clan has a firm grip over the cyclocross scene, especially in this full-time period right now. But that's a new reality, and Sveik had a bit of an advantage, although I believe he was mainly just suffering, and won on willpower. One thing I did notice about Sveik was that his sand today was not that good, and that made me think back of Koksijde, kind of reminiscing about that race against Del Grosso. In that race, he in the sand skill sections also was not that great. He needed in that race to rely on the power sand sections, the one where he could really go at it. That's where he put, in the end, the advantage in over Del Grosso. Today, in the final lap, Van Toerenhout breaks away because Sveik loses the rut. So I'm wary of the fact that Sveik is maybe losing a little bit of his edge and his sublimeness in the sand. Of course, there were also moments of brilliance today in the race by Sveik, the sprint being one of them. In the sand, however, I did not see that many of them, so I will be keeping a close eye on that for the upcoming races, because maybe it's time to crown a new Sandmaster, and maybe, well, Van Toerenhout was great today, but maybe that could be Niels van der Putte. He has been very good in the sand today. Another solid outing by him. I don't really have too much to say about that, so I suggest that we look at the entire top 10 of today's race, Issam, because it was Sveik, Van der Putte, Van Toerenhout, Verstringen in 4th place, with Orts, Van der Bos, Michels, Nieuwenhuis, Meeuwse and Kuhn completing the top 10. As this race is not really a clear indication for what's to come, I don't want to spend an extensive amount of time discussing all these riders. My overall observation is, additionally to what you said about mentality and things going like wrong or still not being fully recovered from that hard race. I mean, I think Mason, Ronhaar, they both went very deep. Nijs and Viseur didn't even start today. What could we see? The start was important. Many riders that were caught behind never really came to the front. Orts, for instance, he was very strong today, but just didn't have the legs. Michels made a very fine impression. His start was not horrendous, but he was also chasing. If you then are not really able to really make that move, get yourself in the group and recover a bit, then the lights go out again. So that was kind of my observation from today. Some riders that were good were bad, or some riders that were good at the European Championships, were bad today. Some riders that were bad there were good today. It means nothing. We will see in Hamme and Merckx+, and at the same time, like this decompression after the peak, it's only a week, maybe 2 weeks. Well, it will be 1 week, and then we'll get the first interviews from riders. Oh, I'm really tired. I'm going to go to Spain after Tabor. I need this rest. It's that time of the season already, and for my short list to go to Spain is definitely Joris Nieuwenhuis.
Yeah, I think both. I guess the fatigue might be kicking in, but also the morale is just, I guess, a bit lower than it was before the European Championships, and it's hard to say what the reason for that is. I guess we're already entering. We have had already quite some races done, and that could play a role, but it could also be just training a bit too hard and just feeling it right now, and you need kind of that decompression in a way of a week or two. But then the World Cups are already coming up quite soon, and you have to plan it now. You gotta plan it. You gotta see what is important. Where are your priorities? Do you want to fight for classification? Do you want to fight for race wins? Do you have races that you kind of marked as something that you really want to win? I don't think that you should be thinking about a championship just yet, but you still gotta kind of figure out how you want to be at the end of January, and those are just all going to be questions that have to be answered, and the body also has their own answers. So it seems with Nieuwhuis that he is a bit off. Today wasn't really his day. It's a bit of a shame because I kind of hoped that he was going to be a bit better, but it doesn't seem to be that way, and then you have to the facts are the facts, and the facts are currently that Nieuwhuis is just not able to live up to that expectation that I set for him and that I had.
And that ties into our next section. It's a weekday and I'm working again tomorrow. I know you're also busy as some, so instead of making this another hour-long episode like this weekend, let's move on and see what this has done to your power rankings. It's time for Isam's Mud Mountain.
Isam's Mud Mountain.
Yes, Isam, take it away. We had the European Championships, a bit of a revenge race today in Niel. What has this done to your Mud Mountain?
It always does something, right? And I think it has done something again. We go to Tier 5, straight into the names, I guess. We have Felipe Orts, demoted. Mees Hendricks is back on it again. Lars van der Haar is there with Jente Michels and Toon van de Bos. Let's talk about the demoted rider in the likes of Orts. It is difficult. It is busy up there, and we are going through the names as well who are in the tiers higher up. It's just getting busy, and it's hard for me to judge it in a way. But I tried my best. I honestly did, and it's just at the moment, Orts did not make the cut for tier 4. Big of a shame. I think that Hendricks, the way he raced the European Championships, I think it definitely was deserving of being back on the tier list, and yeah, I couldn't get around him, so that's why I picked him again in tier 5. If you go to tier 4, the names: Verstringen, Zweek, Mason, and Viseuren. Verstringen was probably the one that hurt the most in demoting, and Mason, for me, it has been still this on and off switch in a way, but I feel that the on is getting better and better, and that is probably a positive. And for me, I felt that I had to reward him with tier 4. He has to show now that he's able to stay there, I feel. So he's definitely a rider that I will keep an eye on, but I feel that he deserved this at the moment. And yeah, for Verstringen, as I said, it's getting busy up there, and that's why he was also one of the riders that had to be taken down from tier 3 into tier 4. If we go to tier 3 then, the names: Ronhaar, Nieuwenhuis, and Niels van de Putte. The one that I was seeing as the next thing, Nieuwenhuis. It was a hard decision, but I had to do it. I believed so much. I put a lot of belief in him, but I guess I did not get in return what I wanted, and therefore I had to make this decision in demoting Nieuwenhuis. It's the thing that I had to do. Van de Putte has been on a roll. I think that Ronhaar is currently just kind of, he's there. It doesn't really change his position. I think that for Van de Putte, though, if he can keep it up, if he can get better and better, fighting more and more for race victories, I think that he can look more up than he can look down. If you go to tier 2 then, there are 2 names that we haven't mentioned that you already have guessed, and there's one name that normally was a bit lower, Toon Aerts is the name that has been promoted to Tier 2. And it's a big promotion. Next to him is Van Toerenhout in Tier 2. And I feel that for Aerts, how can I overlook the European champion with that performance? I mean, he did not choke. He was able to deliver on a race. Did I forget the performances that were beforehand? No. Do I think that Aerts is going to be the rider that is going to now, not choke at all in a final lap? I don't know. That is up for him, but I don't think that has completely gone. So we have to wait and see. But I wanted to reward him with Tier 2. I definitely think that if he gets his courses, he will definitely be a danger, because he just, the form looks good. And, it's as a champion, he definitely deserves it. And yes, Tier 1, top of the mountain still, Thibaut Nys. And this is going to be hard to explain, I guess, in a way, but also not. Because if you look at the European Championships, sure, Nys lost that championship, but he was there. And I think that being there, and the consistency that I expect from him, and the fact that I feel like could be doing well in numerous courses and is less of a choker than Aerts in a way. It's weird to say because he choked the European Championships in a way, but he didn't have the legs, I guess. I feel that Nys definitely deserves to be in Tier 1. Top of the mountain for a second week in the row. I think that he definitely deserves it. So that is my mountain.
That tastes like promotion. Toon Aerts moving up is some... Look, it's very tight, and I can discuss long and short, like, all these changes. I'm looking down because I have it written down here in front of me, but... Look, it's a conundrum you're in, because it's super close. Mason is in Tier 4. Orts moves down despite some solid outings. It's just the way the cookie crumbles right now. It's super, super tight up there. There's a lot of fluctuations, so I get your dilemma, and I honestly don't agree on everything, but I also have no harsh disagreements. Sveik definitely saved his skin today. The one I was perhaps most surprised about was Viseur Issam. He was really good this weekend, also finishing on the podium. But then, are you going to move Nieuwenhuis down right away for 2 disappointing races in a row when a week before he was still winning in Lokeren? So it's the, like I said, it's the way the cookie crumbles.
Tough. Yeah, it's tough. I think I didn't mention Viseur, but I think he definitely deserves a mention as well. I think that with Viseur, things have been on the up, because I was kind of saying that I kind of missed that sharpness. I feel like it is somewhat showing in his latest results as well. I think his European Championship was also a very strong outing. I think that Viseur is definitely also one of those riders that if he can get that momentum and he gets better in terms of scoring results, and he gets more into the fights for podiums, I think that he's definitely a rider to look at to move up. But I think you said it, perfectly there as well. It's just so difficult. It's all kind of based on what the situation is that we get in front of us. And for sure, Sveik saved his ass today with that victory, because he was one of the riders that he was the rider I was looking at to demo to Tier 5, to be honest. I had all eyes on him, but he saved his ass. He was there, he delivered, and I think that for himself as well must be a relief, and I hope for him that he can actually be more the rider that can pick his races, because I think he is definitely a rider when he's at the front. He has an excitement level, I guess, on him. The way he can win at times is definitely incredible as well at times. And, I feel that he is a rider that normally should, on a good level, if he is himself, he should just be fighting for victories if the field is what we have right now. So it has been disappointing, and hopefully he can now, just get better and better. And I don't believe in miracles. I don't think that he's now all of a sudden going to be fighting for victories in the next couple of weekends. But I just hope at least that you see, a line that moves up, and that there is some progression in the performance of Laurens Sveik.
Let's move to the women's racing then, and there the main storyline was pretty much the filled up hospital with injured and absent riders. We had Of course, Van van Empel still out. She is recovering from a lingering illness. Alvarado yet to come in action this season due to a knee injury. This was named as the earliest date possible to return. Now Tabor next week seems unlikely as well. Annemarie Vorst, same situation, broken collarbone in the CIMAC Ladies Tour. Additionally, out was Sara Casasola. She had some injury to her ribs following the crash after the crash in Middelkerke. She did the pre-ride today but wasn't fit to start. Also out with injuries, Marion Norbert Ribeirol, the Belgian champion, got hit by a car on training. So she is out with some stitches. Also unlikely that she will return. I can already preview to you that for that reason Ribeirol is off Noah's 9. It's quite tough to make that list right now with how many riders there were absent. The field was definitely not thick today, but we had the European champion Inge van der Heijden making an early move for it, showing her new colors, but it was quite clear that today Lucinda Brandt was the strongest rider. We had a few hiccups from Aniek van Alphen. She struggled on some hills, was going sideways, but in the end, halfway through the race roughly, Brandt powered away, took the win by 50 seconds over Van der Heijden and Van Alphen. I would say order respected. As much as I would like to talk very extensively about this race, I'm afraid it's going to be very short, Issam. The field was 1, not deep, and 2, the race was very straightforward, not at all that entertaining, no suspense really, podium positions all locked in, so I don't really know what to say other than that Brandt kind of makes up for what appeared to be a bad day at the European Championships.
Yeah, I guess so, and that, you know, I think it's just it's a bit difficult to judge the races right now because it's just. And I think this is something that we had discussed already in some episodes ago, that just these injuries and latecomers and the anticipation of riders that still have to show up and get actually going with their season. It kind of holds the racing a bit back, I guess, because you have this idea of this one is still coming back, she is still coming back, and that kind of kills it in a way. But today it was tough. I think Van der Heijden definitely tried, but there were just a couple of sections, I guess, that kind of killed that momentum of coming back, and I think the one that killed that momentum the most was just Brandt putting on the turbo and having a very good race. There were some mistakes left and right, but it was overall, she did what she had to do, I guess, and she wasn't able to do that at the European Championships. And I think, an agitated Brandt, a Brandt that is, I guess, motivated right now, is also somewhat a dangerous Brandt. And I think that is definitely the constant factor, arguably maybe the only constant factor that we have currently in the women category, in the likes of Brandt, just being able to, turbo down those courses and being able to get the results on the podium, and if it's up to her, winning them as well. And I think that is where we are looking at the moment, and the course doesn't help. But Brandt's form also doesn't really help, and that is the situation that we have right now.
It is what it is, to say in the words of a philosopher I spoke to this weekend who is on the other side of the screen right now. I heard that multiple times in the episode, and that is the reality we are in. So, yeah, she was the strongest today in terms of power. I think for Van der Heijden you could say maybe we can bring in some excuses. She too probably had a big party and needed to recover a bit from that. She's not as eager as Brandt is, so maybe we can start hyping ourselves up or gaslighting ourselves into thinking that this weekend there will be a entertaining duel for the win in Merckxplas and Hamme. I don't really expect it. I just listed the list of absent riders. Casasola should be coming back, so that's one thing. She will remain on my list because she did pre-ride today and it's not that bad the way that she's feeling, so that's at least something to look forward to, because Casasola has been very impressive this season as well. Fingers crossed it's a bit more. I would just like to take this moment then maybe to discuss a little bit on Inge van der Heijden, her career trajectory, a point we didn't really reach in the podcast this Saturday. I am actually pleased to see her win the European title. It marks the definite end of the period of eternal talent, Inge van der Heijden. That was already over, I feel, for a year and a half. But think back to the career of Inge van der Heijden. I always remember 2019, maybe it was 2018. She was an Orange CCC teammate of Marianne Vos, labeled as potentially the successor because she was on the same team, leading the World Cup, leading the U23 World Cup, only good on the fast courses, not at all good on the muddy courses. U23 World title by surprise in Bogense. Sandro Alvarado was the favorite for that race. A year later, Van der Heijden was the favorite in Dubendorf. Alvarado had moved to the elite category, winning her only title thus far. Van der Heijden, the big favorite. Conditions turned around, it got quite muddy. Van der Heijden couldn't yet perform on those courses. It was Ribarol taking the title. For years, Van der Heijden was seen as a talent, a quite big talent as well, up there. But she was not really able to leave her mark on the elite category in the way that was expected. A new generation of riders stood up. Fem van Empel, Puk Pietersen, Shirin van Anrooy for a brief while. She never really was able to push through that, but also was not able in this period when they are not necessarily there to make that step towards Brandt, Alvarado. For a while there was Vorst up there. But now, I would argue that period of her career is over. It already was considered over last year, but the time of Inge van der Heijden, she'll make steps, she'll eventually get somewhere. Her career is honestly a success, and in a way, it reminds me of when Toon Aerts won that title in Pontchâteau. He too was seen as quite a big talent for a while, and that was his big breakthrough. For Van der Heijden, I wouldn't argue this is her breakthrough, but it's still a significant step in her career, which feels kind of similar to the way Aerts won it back then. Although, of course, Aerts was a bit younger than Van der Heijden is right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is definitely, you can be up there. And I think she definitely was up there, but it was there was something missing, I guess. And I guess with a European title, the way she did it as well, that kind of just, I would say, cements your career in a way, if that even is a thing. It just gives it more oomph, and I think that is what she kind of lacked before, and now she has it. Now she has the credentials, I guess, of saying, look, my career is a success. And that doesn't mean that it wasn't beforehand, but it was just, you cannot really bring the junior categories and all that. You leave that behind when you start with the elites. That's something it's for bragging rights, I guess, when you have grandchildren, but it's not gonna help you in the elites category. It can help you maybe in your first couple of years in terms of contracts, but then it becomes tougher and tougher. So I guess she kind of just needed something like this, and now she has it, and I think she deserved it on that day. She deserves it if you look in terms of how she has been going on in her career. She kind of just missed it, and now she has it. So I think that was definitely that's cool to see, and I think that as I said before, she deserved it. It will mean something. And you will wear that jersey for a year, and that is just a side as well that you will not really forget for a while as well, because it's just when you see a championship jersey is just something that sticks with you, even if they are out of that jersey. You kind of just you remember them as well with that jersey. Now she kind of just needs to have some good results in that jersey as well. I think that would be even better, and I think that she is also capable of doing that. It just needs to go her way a little bit, and today I have to say. No, I cannot say I was surprised, but I think it was good to see that she was actually able to bring up a fight, and we brought, the excuses can definitely be brought for today, and I'm not gonna, we could gaslight each other in terms of, thinking that there is going to be a battle with the Brandt in current form. But who knows? She might be able to at least give a battle for the first half of the race, because Brandt and starts, it cannot always go right. So I think that that is definitely something to look forward for. And yeah, I am I think that it was again, as I repeat myself, it was a great sight to see that she was able to clinch on that title. She deserves it, and it's going to mean something for her career.
Van der Heijden with this win and this second place returns to the level that I had hoped she would reach before the start of the season, where I placed her in my initial power rankings, roughly around Meulenbeke. Better than Van Alphen, maybe not yet quite as good as Brandt, but able on a very good day to beat Brandt. What you're alluding to, Sam, I think, is the point that she has something tangible, or not something, the most tangible thing in cycling, a jersey to show for at the end of her career. Many riders of her caliber don't get that opportunity to win something like that. Alvarado won that jersey, that World Champions jersey, when she was a first-year elite, still a U23. That was a golden move, because afterwards it's been really tough for her. She's had ups and downs, she's been good, but she will always have that one jersey. She'll always be a world champion, and Van der Heijden will always be a European champion. On the other hand, a rider like Betsema, I think Betsema has one world championship podium. And that doesn't mean that Betsema won't be proud of that bronze medal, and that's not something tangible. But a rider like Betsema or a rider like Annemarie Worst, in a fully just universe, which we definitely do not live in many ways, right? But in a fully fair universe, Betsema would have a European title as well to show for at the end of her career. And Annemarie Worst would have a world title to show for. They had those phases. Heck, even for Betsema, you could have made the case that she had deserved a world title at some point. That's not the way it works. You need to do it on that day. Doesn't matter if your entire season is gone into the sea, if it's drowned, if the boat is gone, if the Titanic lifeboats have long sailed. It doesn't matter. If your entire season is bad, but you become world champion, you are the world champion. That's kind of the beauty of these championships, and at the same time the cruelty of them. And Van der Heijden now always has that jersey from Middelkerke at the very least to show for, in addition to that rainbow jersey she has from the youth category. But I agree, it's ultimately about your achievements in the elite category. Let's look at the entire top 10 then. Brandt, Van der Heijden, Van Alphen complete a full Dutch podium. Then Helene Clauzel is in 4th ahead of Julie Brouwers. Good ride by her. Amandine Fouquenet struggled on the technical course ahead of Laura Verdonschot. 8th place for Denise Betsema ahead of Larissa Hartog and Fionn Drake, completing the top 10 for Great Britain. I don't see much point in discussing the riders here. We have discussed the seasons of Clauzel and Fouquenet quite a lot in recent weeks. What I will say is that they were worried about the career of Iserbyt, and in a similar way, Laura Verdonschot is also worried about her career. At the European Championships, her foot felt numb. She has undergone surgery to narrowed arteries. If she doesn't feel any improvements in the next few weeks and the medical examinations show that her arteries have narrowed again, she will end her career, is what she said. She doesn't want to undergo a risky second surgery. So fingers crossed for Verdonschot. That would be very sad, especially because she fought so hard to come back to that level that she had in Tabor 2 seasons ago. But there is a positive coming for Laura Verdonschot. It's time for Noah's 9.
Catch the heat!
Noah's 9. Yes, the power rankings return after the European Championships. As I just said, Marjo Norbe-Riberol is off my list because she is out for a few weeks. Van Empel does not yet return because I don't know when she's going to come back, likely in Tabor. I can break the news that in Tabor, Viktoria Gladanova will also start her season. I spoke with the Slovak national coach and the Slovak ambassador to Belgium quite extensively in Middelkerke, and they were very excited for that return. They also confirmed to me that Gladanova has a clause in her contract which allows her to do cyclocross for Visma through her U23 years, and after that they will reassess what direction her career takes. Maybe a place on Noah's 9 will be somewhere in the future for Gladanova. She was very good last year. But for now, we do it with the riders that are there. And with Riberol moving off the list, I moved Laura Verdonschot on the list. She's been performing okay. It was really between her, Julie Brouwers, maybe a rider like Denise Betsema for that final spot on the list, but I went with Laura Verdonschot also kind of as a sign of encouragement because I really don't wish her that career end which I just discussed. One place ahead of her is Leonie Bentveld. She is in 8th place. I do not at all believe the story that Jurgen Mettepenningen told the press after the title of Bentveld. Yes, Bentveld was good that day, but I also factored in that Jerry was injured. Mettepenningen afterwards said that And I'm almost laughing when I'm saying this, but Leonie Bentveld is just half
I
a
am
percent
laughing.
away from the level of Laura. Man, I'm completely derailing here. Jurgen Mettepenningen said that Leonie Bentveld at this moment is just a paper-thin margin behind Lucinda Brandt and Fem van Empel. That Leonie Bentveld has it in her to next year be one of the top contenders for the world title. I leave you with that and this rare duo shot in Noah's 9 because Issam is laughing out on the other side, I hear in my earphones. So Leonie Bentveld stays on 8.
Could you imagine?
One place behind Celia Géry. Yes, Géry was not that good. I, in fact, don't even know when her next race will be. She might be resting until Tabor. She came into the cross season quite early. She might even be resting longer. So this is a name that is on the nomination list to be taken off for the time being if she's indeed resting longer. My kind of point is if you're out for 1 week, that's fine to stay on. But if you're out for 2 weeks, I will take you off the list. That's why Van Empel is off. That's why Ribeirol is off. In the 6th place, we find Helene Clauzel. She moves up 1 place following a good performance today in Niel. She was also quite solid at the European Championships. Her season has been quite good. She does profit from higher inflation. The results are easier to come by with these many injuries, but I'm still waiting for her to get rid of that black kit and be racing in a colored kit. Although now that I'm saying that, I of course don't remember if she was by any chance already racing in a colored kit today. I was watching in the office, so please forgive me. She is 1 place behind the top French rider in my list, and that is Amandine Foucounet. Foucounet rode really strong in Middelkerke. She is a powerful rider, so that's why I put her in 5th place. Her season has been good. Today's score is probably a bit too technical for her in Niel, but it's hard to really argue against her results. If you look at them, they're quite good. Moving down 1 place to 4th is Aniek van Alphen. Van Alphen has been quite good. Consistent season, not really much change. She got that medal which I predicted for the European Championships. Definitely not lucky at all with the crash of Casasola there, but you win some, you lose some, I guess. She is on 4th place. Shooting up the list, Inge van der Heijden. I kept telling you that while she was moving down, the European Championships could be a really good course for her. I didn't expect her to win, but the European champion, 2nd place to back it up today. We know she has this level in her. We heard the rumors about a persistent cold. It seems that that was true. It seems that she's back at her best, and therefore she catapults up my list to 3rd place in an all-Dutch... No, not an all-Dutch podium. I am very sorry because I first had Casasola scratched out, but she is on my list because she was only a DNS for today. She remains in 2nd place. I don't really have much to move her on. Yes, she crashed at the European Championship. Yes, she was forced. It was also not a good course for her, so that's why Casasola stays up there. I still am a Casasola believer, but not a believer enough to put her on top, because on top of my list for, I think, 3rd or 4th week in a row now is Lucinda Brandt. Win today. Yes, a bad day at the European Championships, but it is still Lucinda Brandt, and there you have it. Noah's 9 for the week of the 11th of the 11th, Issam.
Oh man, you shouldn't have brought that up about Mette Penning, honestly, but because it just takes me off. That Paul Sousa is some strong. You should not be eating that, I guess, because holy moly, if that is causing those, and look, I'm not laughing because I don't see the potential of Bentveld. Don't get me wrong. I'm laughing because it's ludicrous that someone like Mette Penning, with the experience that he has had as well, I should not be surprised, I guess, as well, because, his outrageous comments is just, he does that all the time, I guess, in a way. But, yeah, Bentveld is a talent for sure. But at the moment, I just don't see that. I don't see what there have to be some changes, I guess, in terms of progression. If that has to be done, there could always be surprises in the championship, and she could eventually get a championship. Who knows? But I just feel that right now it's just too hard to say that is going to be the way it's going to go. It's just not really there at the moment. But who knows?
The main thing is not that Bentveld is not talented. It's just that we don't have a shortage of talent. She's a fourth year U23, beating down on a rider who fell on the inscription stairs at the Koppenberg. And then we're celebrating like it's the next big thing. Are we forgetting that she's the same age as Zoe Backstedt, who has performed way better in the elite category? Are we realizing that she's roughly of the same age as Mari Schreiber, who has also outperformed her? So we have a lot of young talent coming through, Géry being the next one. I already mentioned Gladanova. I'm very curious to see what Vida Lopez de San Roman can do this season following a great campaign on the mountain bike. You would expect that translates to that progression to some extent to the cross bike. We have still young talents. Fem van Empel, Shirin van Anrooy is going to start her season in a few weeks. We have so many young riders, Puk Pieterse. It's just not that Bentveld isn't talented. She's just coming up through this whole wave of talent explosion. And yes, she is a good rider. And I think maybe if everything falls her way, she has the potential to win a world championship medal in the elite. And that's kind of how I see her right now. As a rider who will finish in the top 10 of a lot of races. But you will also see that Leonie Bentveld, that inflation I was talking about with Clozel, when we hit the Christmas period, there's going to be so many more riders here that Bentveld will be falling down the order. Not because she's not doing well, but simply because there's more riders here. So that about Bentveld. I think we can leave the rest of the list for what it is and wrap up this episode. Issam, thank you so much for your time.
It was getting too long. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
I said weekday, work tomorrow, not 1 hour mark, but we reached the 50-minute mark, so thanks everyone for listening. We are going to be back fairly soon. This weekend we will record about the Superprestige in Merckxplas and the XO Trophy in Hamme. See you guys then. Goodbye.